Tucker Carlson is back, ladies and gentlemen. He released a video late in the evening yesterday, a pretty short video, pretty vague video, but it was the message in the video that was most important, ladies and gentlemen. He didn't mention Fox. He didn't mention anything about leaving Fox, but he did send a pretty cryptic message in his video that I think is extremely important for people to hear. So we're going to go ahead and play that for you on today's show. Also, there's a whole lot of other stuff to get into that has happened. Like I've been saying, the last 6 months of the media cycle has been insane. And so we're going to get into a few things today. I'm going to try and cram as much as I can into one episode. That's what we've been kind of doing lately because there's just so much. I can't just do one topic per show. I have to cram as much stuff in one episode as possible. And I think an hour, a little over an hour or so is pretty good, is a pretty good time. And so I've been keeping them around about an hour. So I'm going to let you listen to the Tucker video. We're going to discuss that a little bit. Also, I want to get into how the Biden administration is weaponizing our institutions like the EPA, and how there's a Democrat that sided with the Republicans in a bill that was essentially going to empower the EPA even more. And we're going to talk about who that Democrat is. I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good idea. Also, I want to talk about Joe Biden's 2024 reelection bid. I think we're going to get into that right at the end because there was a whole lot of disinformation in that announcement, ladies and gentlemen. I can't even believe that they allowed this man to release that video because, ladies and gentlemen, it is completely Orwellian. It is a completely different country than what the rest of us are experiencing. So we're going to try and get into all three of those topics and maybe try and talk about a couple other things in between. So that's what we're going to be doing on today's episode. So stay tuned and let's do this.
You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show. Building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And you never know where Stephen may go. And now, here's Stephen.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, so much truth in just a couple minutes. Now you know why Tucker Carlson was so effective against the Democrats and the leftists and the entire orthodoxy's agenda. He was extremely effective at just making people think. He didn't have to do it in some belligerent, psychopath, chaotic way. He didn't have to go on a rant or something like that. Tucker Carlson was so effective because he just made people think. All you have to do is just think, and the truth shall set you free. And that's all he did. And so he made so many good points in there, and I swear I could probably do an entire episode on just the message that he sent in that 2-minute video. That is why Tucker Carlson, no matter where he goes, is going to be extremely popular and extremely powerful. And look, they just never get the message. The left never gets it, folks. They always think that by canceling somebody and deplatforming them, that it's over. No, Tucker Carlson is going to start his own platform. He's going to start his own media outlet, probably like a Blaze or a Daily Wire, and he's going to be extremely powerful. Way more powerful than he ever could have been at Fox News. And so they are going to be kicking themselves in the ass here very shortly. Now, I don't know when Tucker Carlson can even do a podcast or some kind of media outlet, because apparently he's still in a contract. And so what I think Fox News did, and this is what I think. Everybody's been making speculations. Bill O'Reilly has simply come out and said, yeah, I know what's going on with the entire situation. And he said this is all about future lawsuits and the damage that Fox News is getting ready to go through. And I guess they're just trying to cut their losses early. Essentially cleaning house so that they look better. Now, in my previous episode, I said it was a family feud and that one of the kids, or maybe two of the kids, essentially the leftists in the family, came out and essentially talked their dad into firing Tucker Carlson. But I think it's much, much deeper than that, folks. I think, and in my previous episode, I played you the clips of AOC cheering for the deplatforming of Tucker Carlson. I played you a clip of Chuck Schumer calling for Tucker Carlson to be fired before it even happened. That's a little concerning. And what I think is Tucker Carlson was fired by the establishment. Tucker Carlson was targeted by the uniparty swamp creature establishment, the bureaucracy of our Washington, D.C. Capitol, and they had to stop him because he was extremely effective. That's why I think Tucker Carlson was fired from Fox News. But these people don't get it, folks. They just don't get it. People like Adam Kissinger, who comes out and says on Twitter, the world will move on. Bye-bye, Tucker. Don't let the door hit you. This moron just does not get it. Same with AOC. They don't get it. Tucker is going to come out and he's going to be extremely powerful. This is what I worry about. Tucker Carlson may have gotten golden handcuffs, and so he was still under contract for a couple years, which means technically I don't know if he can do anything. Now, Bill O'Reilly says those contracts, those non-compete contracts, it does not talk about or it doesn't mention digital media. So if Tucker Carlson comes out and does a podcast, I don't think they can stop him on that, but nobody knows the details of his contract. Only Tucker Carlson knows his contract and obviously his lawyers. But this is why I say this was a move by the establishment, because Tucker Carlson had a huge part in getting Donald Trump elected, and Tucker Carlson would have been extremely effective at getting Donald Trump reelected because Tucker Carlson was very effective. He wasn't effective so much on the right and the conservatives. We liked him too. I loved him only because he spoke the truth. Tucker Carlson was extremely effective with people in the middle of the road. Tucker Carlson was extremely effective with the independents. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is who's going to be deciding our 2024 election. And so I think the establishment swamp creatures, the bureaucracy of our nation, got together and said, how can we start deplatforming people like Tucker Carlson? How can we manage the influx of independents going and voting for Donald Trump? Because it's going to be bad, folks. Once they start going after Joe Biden and the Democrats and their abysmal record in the last 3.5 years, or in the last 3 years that they've had power, it is going to be a bloodbath. And so they're trying to control the bleeding. And the only way to do that is by canceling and deplatforming anybody that is effective at gaining support from the independents. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Tucker Carlson. I know tons and tons of independents, even Democrats, that listen to Tucker Carlson. And just like Tucker Carlson said, if you talk calmly and with confidence, you can be very persuasive. And Tucker Carlson was very persuasive. He was very persuasive at getting people in the middle of the road to just think. That is all he did. He did not do anything but give people the ability to think about what he was saying, just like in that 2-minute video. If you just think about the stuff he's saying for a little bit, you have no other way but to see the truth. Unless you're blinded to the truth because of your hatred for Donald Trump. And that's why I've always said Trump derangement syndrome is the cause of all of this. Because Trump derangement syndrome causes people to be blind to things they should be noticing. And so people like Tucker Carlson, when he talks and he writes these monologues and, he gives these speeches and makes these videos, he's going to be extremely effective at just getting people to think. Normal, rational people that are not infected with Trump derangement syndrome, that are not diagnosed with TDS, are going to think and they're going to notice that the Democrat Party is not for them. Okay? And it is going to be a bloodbath. And what that's going to lead to is independents voting for Donald Trump. Okay? It is going to, because they're going to hold their nose and they're going to pull the lever for Donald Trump just to stop the pain. And right now, the Democrats' message is apparently from Joe Biden's 2024 reelection campaign, essentially said the beatings will continue until morale improves. Okay. And that is exactly the message I got from the 2024 Joe Biden reelection video. It is awful, folks. It is gross. And we're going to be talking about that in today's episode. And so, like I said, Tucker Carlson is going to come out and he's going to be extremely powerful. And my reply to Adam Kissinger, when he says the world will move on, bye-bye, Tucker, don't let the door hit you, I said, yeah, good job. Now he's going to be more powerful than ever. When will these people learn that you can't stifle speech? Now Tucker is going to start his own platform with millions of followers. Just this one video got more views than his normal time slot at Fox. This video got 45 million views, ladies and gentlemen. That blows his normal time slot out of the water. 45 million views. That is crazy. And now I get it. It's probably because people, he wasn't seen since his firing. He disappeared for 2 days. And so people were just drooling and salivating at the mouth, trying to figure out what Tucker Carlson knew and what he had to say about the entire situation. Well, you heard the video, folks. He didn't mention Fox News once. He didn't mention anything. All he did is he made you think, who is the orthodoxy here? And why is the establishment, which he calls the orthodoxy, why is the establishment trying to censor people? Why? If what the Democrats are saying, if what Tucker Carlson is saying is a lie, why censor him? Why let him go? It's not, folks. It's because they know that he's speaking the truth. And like I always said, if you ever want to know which side is lying, just figure out which side is trying to censor people. That is a phrase I learned from Dennis Prager, a very, very wise man. He's like the wise grandpa I never had. And that was a phrase that he said, and it explains so much, and I say it as much as possible. It is a tool that he gave people to really know if you're on the right side of history. And all you have to do is just figure out which side is trying to censor people. Because if you're telling the truth, then you don't have to censor the other side. Only the people lying have to censor the other side. If you're lying to somebody and you know you're lying to somebody, the only thing that can hurt your lie is if somebody else comes around with the truth. And so what do? You got to stop that person. You cannot let that person talk, or you shield the person you just lied to from the truth. And so that's why that video was so effective. And I think that video is going to go down in infamy, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is the beginning of a whole new era for Tucker Carlson, and it is going to be beautiful. Let's just hope he's not under some kind of crazy contract that gives him the golden handcuffs and he can't do anything, because that wouldn't be good. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about today, but the topics we're going to be talking about are all correlated with one another and how the government is weaponizing institutions against the people. Institutions like the EPA. You've seen the Biden administration. This administration is very, very effective at weaponizing government institutions, just like Barack Obama, where he said he got a pen and he's got a phone and that's how he's going to get things done. Not through Congress, but through executive orders, not through the Constitution, but by edict. And that is exactly how the Biden administration has been operating since its conception in 2020. And so they use things like, how they used OSHA for the vaccine mandates. Since they know it was unconstitutional to force people to take a vaccine, they used OSHA as a backdoor weapon to get people and force people to take the vaccine. And I'm proud to say that I am one of those people that did not take the vaccine. There's only about 35 million of us out there out of 390 million. And so I'm extremely proud to be one of those unjabbed people. It was a very rough ride, folks, because of my work. It was, I was preparing to lose it all, ladies and gentlemen. I was preparing to lose it all. I was preparing to lose my job. I was getting everything in order. I was getting my finances in order. I was preparing my family. And I was going to leave. I was absolutely going to leave. I was not going to allow the United States government to stick me with some kind of experimental vaccine. It wasn't going to happen. And just because I said those words, this show is probably going to get demonetized. That is what we're witnessing, ladies and gentlemen. We are witnessing the mass censorship of the truth. That is exactly what is happening. And you cannot have a country if you have people trying to censor the truth. You just can't. This is what happens in every kind of authoritarian regime or dictatorship is they squash speech. They deplatform anybody or anything that talks about anything but what they want you to hear and what they want you to see. And so the Biden administration has been really effective at weaponizing the government, and this is just another example of that. However, there was a Democrat that actually stood up and voted and sided with Republicans on this to keep the EPA from being weaponized against the American people. And so I got an article here from the Epic Times, a hat tip to Ryan Morgan. Senate votes to overturn Biden admin's truck emissions rule with support from Manchin. The Senate passed a resolution on Wednesday to overturn a heavy-duty engines emissions rule implemented by President Joe Biden's administration after Senator Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, broke ranks with his fellow Democrats and instead joined Republicans in opposition to the emissions rule. In December, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, announced the new Control of Air Pollution from New Motor Vehicles, Heavy-Duty Engine and Vehicle Standards, which placed more stringent emission standards over a wider range of heavy-duty engine operating conditions. The new rule was set to go into effect in March, but Republicans have been preparing to oppose the regulations through a Congressional Review Act. A resolution introduced by Senator Deb Fischer, Republican of Nebraska. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, this administration, and I don't want to say this administration because it's not just them by themselves. This is what people need to realize. This administration has essentially been taken over by the corrupt establishment. All the rich elites, all the billionaires, the globalists, the entire establishment is using this administration as a tool, as a wedge to get in there and implement their agenda, to implement their ideology. And this is why you see them weaponizing this climate crisis, this hysteria, so that they have the justification for doing all of this. Everything you see that is being done is all in the name of climate change or all in the name of civil liberties, like the whole transgender movement and putting pornographic books in the schools. And that was actually something I was going to talk about, but we're not going to have enough time on this show to do it. So I'm going to do another episode about that. There's some big news coming out of a few different states that are really putting their foot down on this whole, the books in the school libraries and the whole like pro-sexualization of the kids in schools, kindergartners all the way up through 8th grade. And so there's been some big news in some groups putting their foot down and signing legislation to keep that from happening. But like I said, Joe Biden using the EPA is just another example of how he weaponizes the government institutions to get their agenda through. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish up with this article. Fisher's joint resolution passed in the Senate by a vote of 50-49. Just hours before the vote, Manchin announced that he would back the Republicans-led resolution to overturn the EPA rule. Quote, the last couple of years have shown that truck drivers keep our country moving. However, the Biden administration wants to burden the trucking industry with oppressive regulations that will increase prices by the thousands of dollars and push truck drivers and small trucking companies out of business, said Manchin, a moderate Democrat who has repeatedly been at odds with Biden-era environmental policies. Quote, when our country faces record high inflation and vulnerable supply chains, we cannot let the EPA continue to seize unrestrained power and create regulations that devastate our economy. Manchin continued, I am proud to support this resolution to stop this government overreach. The resolution now moves on to the Republican-controlled House of Representatives. Even if the House also passes a resolution, Biden could veto the bill. It is less likely then that both the House and the Senate would be able to garner enough support to override Biden's veto. So this is what I've been trying to explain to Democrats or to any independents when they talk about why gas prices are high and how the Biden administration caused all these gas prices that we're seeing right now and why groceries are so expensive, why everything has went up in price. It's not just inflation. And so you got like a 2 or 3 headed monster here. Inflation's one of them. Yes, that doesn't help, but inflation is always there, folks. Usually we want to keep it around 2%. And obviously this is like at a crazy 6 or 7% inflation rate, which is compounding, which is year over year. But one of the major factors in a lot of this stuff is the cost of fuel, is the cost of energy to do all this. And so just like he's trying to say, by the Democrats coming after the trucking industry and creating more regulations by the government, which are obviously not necessary. Okay, we already have regulations, and what they're trying to do is it's just like California. They want to make the entire country like California. That is what they want. And so the entire country is going to look like California. A complete crap hole, insane crime rate, unlivable economy. That's what they want, folks. This is what they want. They are trying to turn the country into California. And by this EPA rule, by using the EPA to come after truckers, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a way for them to put their foot down and get control of the trucking industry. And so just like Manchin said, it's a major overreach. We do not need more government, folks. We need less government. Government needs to be shrinking, not growing. Okay? It is the only thing that has been consistently growing my entire life. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been government shrinkage, ever. And so when the government gets bigger, it spends more money. And when it spends more money, they have to print more money. And so this is the problem we're having because the other side, the Democrats, the leftists, they just don't see this. And frankly, some Republicans, I'm not saying Republicans are innocent in all this, folks. Like I said, we had 18 Republican members vote for Joe Biden's disastrous Inflation Reduction Act. That fraudulent bill that was shoved down the people's throats that caused a lot of this inflation. 18 Republican senators voted for that bill, and I went through the names already. I named all 18 of them. And so we are up against a machine. This is kind of what I wanted this episode to be about. I want people to understand that we are up against a machine. We're not up against the Biden administration. We're not up against the Democrats. No, this is Americans that just want to be left alone against a globalist elite class, an establishment. It's the American people against the establishment, folks. That's the name of this story. That is the title of this book, and I think it's best that people look at it that way. It's not just Republicans against Democrats. It's the globalist against the American people. Okay, we are up against a massive, massive machine here. And they are winning. They are winning in a lot of areas, but I do see some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to continue on with the article here. The EPA says rule would save lives. This is how they're doing this, folks. This is what I want to explain to you. This is how the Biden administration and the establishment are justifying this massive increase of government power and this massive overreach of the United States government. Okay, here we go. The EPA has justified the new engine regulations, arguing that they will reduce emissions from nitrogen oxides, resulting in improved health conditions for people living in the United States. The agency estimated that there would be between 860 and 2,900 fewer premature deaths annually by 2045 as a result of a reduction in the harmful emissions from heavy-duty engines. How can they possibly know how many people are going to be dying from these trucks and the air? Folks, they are using something that you cannot find, you cannot prove. They're using this faceless, nameless thing to fearmonger people into justifying all their actions, into justifying them cramming their agenda and getting their agenda implemented. That is what they're doing. It's the same thing they did with COVID. They used COVID as a guise to get all these crazy rules into place for the election, like changing changing election laws and changing, massive government overreach. The government got so much power during the pandemic, and most people don't even realize. And right now, what we're trying to do is claw back a lot of that power that the government got because of the pandemic. And they use the pandemic to get their agenda across by lockdowns and mandates and shutting businesses down and so on and so forth. They controlled everything. They controlled everything, folks. And so they're doing the same thing, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that it's the pollution in the air. Could you imagine if the government had control of the air? And there's another bill that they're trying to get through too, where the EPA has jurisdiction over water, any body of water. So right now they have control over big waterways, rivers, lakes, oceans, and so on and so forth. But the EPA was trying to get control over ponds and lakes and puddles, essentially. They wanted the EPA to have control over the air and the water. That is no good. Everybody knows that everything the government touches, it destroys. And I'm telling you, folks, this is a massive attempt at controlling everything. They want to control every aspect of your lives. They want to control what you drive. They want to control what you eat. They want to control what you drink. They want to control what you see, hear, say, do. They want to control everything. And the only way to do that is by using these government institutions and getting their foot in the door by controlling what people put in the air. But now they're just constantly nibbling, incrementalizing into more of the air and controlling more of the water. And so that's what we're witnessing here with this. And so hat tip to Joe Manchin for stepping in here and taking care of this, actually siding with the Republicans and not letting this bill through. But the fact is they're trying, folks. They're trying to get this stuff through. That's what worries me. Joe Manchin's not always going to be there. Republicans aren't always going to have control of the House. So it's the mindset that scares me, and that is what we have to change. And the only way the government feels good about doing what they're doing is they have a mass portion of the population that is willing to accept it. They want to be controlled. They want to be told where they can sleep. They want to be told what they could drive as long as they get it for free. This is why you have people that absolutely have no problem with the government controlling every aspect of their lives. They don't. It's very bizarre, but all this stems from the education system. And like I said, that's going to be another subject that we talk about probably in another episode coming up shortly. But this is what they want. They want to control everything. The agency also estimated there would be 6,700 fewer hospital admissions and emergency department visits annually and 18,000 fewer cases of childhood asthma each year by 2045. See how they're trying to justify it? That's what they're doing. Fisher has argued that the regulations would actually achieve the opposite of the EPA's intended effect because the rule only applies to new heavy-duty highway engines and thus incentivizes operators to keep using older, higher-emitting trucks for longer. That assessment was echoed by Todd Spencer, who serves as the president of the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Quotes, if small business truckers can't afford the new compliant trucks, they're going to stay with the older, less efficient trucks or leave the industry entirely. Spencer said in a press statement on Wednesday, quote, once again, the EPA has largely ignored the warnings and concerns raised by truckers in the latest rule. Again, everything the government touches, it destroys. And so this guy's exactly right. If the EPA essentially makes this rule and truckers can't afford to buy a new truck, what's going to happen? They're just going to keep using their old truck. And then their old truck is going to be worse than if they just left the entire situation alone and just let natural innovation, just let the market function naturally. The government always has to interject in everything, in every aspect of our country. And that is why our country is going down the crapper, folks. Because the more the government gets its tentacles in these institutions, in these into the private markets of all this, the worse things are going to get. Look at the education system. The education system in the United States has been declining ever since the Department of Education got involved. I understand there needs to be regulations on certain things. I understand how most sectors can't have just free reign over everything. But you need to have checks and balances on this stuff. You can't just let the government grow out of control and just have complete control of everything because they destroy everything they touch. I understand how some regulations are good. Yes, we need a EPA to control what we put in the air. We need regulations to control what we put in the water. I get that. I'm not saying it needs to disappear. I'm just saying you're allowing these institutions too much power. Whatever power the EPA has right now, that's enough. It doesn't need any more. So just let it sit. It's like these people constantly have to grow the government until the government is going to be just some kind of giant authoritarian regime. And there's not going to be anything anybody can do. And I don't want to live in that world, man. I don't want to live in some kind of socialist society. These people that want this stuff are nutbags for wanting that. They have no idea. And like I said, a lot of this comes from the education. They are indoctrinated early by this stuff. Okay. They are indoctrinated early from this Vladimir Lenin stuff, okay? The Soviet Union style commie socialist stuff, all right? As long as something's for free, they think it's great. And that's why Republicans struggle winning in elections, is because we're not offering free stuff, okay? And so the Democrats, all they have to do is, hey, we're giving away free college, or hey, we're giving away free welfare. Vote for us. It's hard. It's hard to vote against free stuff. And so that's exactly the Democrats' strategy every single election. And that's why they get the votes that they get. Trust me, because it's not from their ideas. Their ideas suck, people. Their ideas suck. If their ideas were so good, then they wouldn't have to censor the other side. If their ideas were so good, they could debate them on the stage. They don't even want to debate anymore. I mean, they're just shutting down speech altogether. All they have to do is just shut down dissent. They're not even trying to argue with their ideas because their ideas suck. If you haven't noticed, we're living through their ideas right now, and they suck. And usually do nothing but just make people's lives worse. And the Democrats' ideas most of the time just hurt people. They hurt people and they make things worse. And so that's why they can no longer argue on their ideas anymore. And just like Tucker said in his video, this is lunacy and everybody can see it. And it's not going to be able to go on forever. And it won't. And I'm telling you, they notice that too. The leftists, the Democrats, the establishment, the uniparty elites, they know too. And that is why they are freaking out. That's why they're indicting Donald Trump. That is why they're firing Tucker Carlson. And that's probably why they're going to come after all of us now. Nobody's safe. And it seems as if censorship is going mainstream right now. So, and like I told you on yesterday's show, I'm going to keep doing this until I can't anymore. Until they sew my mouth shut, I'm gonna continue to do this show. Okay, so the article continues. Let's go ahead and finish this up. It's almost done. Manchin, Biden at odds on environmental policies. Manchin, a Democrat who represents a state that is both heavily Republican and heavily invested in the fossil fuel industry, has broken ranks with the Biden administration and other Democrats on a number of environmental issues. In February 2021, Manchin urged Biden to reverse course after the president voted to rescind permits for the Keystone XL pipeline. In February of this year, Manchin joined Senator Ted Cruz in crafting a bill that would block the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission from banning gas stoves. And in March, Manchin urged the EPA to refrain from implementing new emission standards for power plants, arguing that the rules would prematurely close those plants and render the U.S. energy grid less reliable while driving up energy prices. After the Biden administration decided to allow a limited version of an Alaskan oil drilling proposal to go forward, Manchin defended the Biden administration from criticism by his fellow Democrats. Yeah, so you wonder why, these Democrats and these independents, these people that aren't paying attention, they wonder why the energy prices and, the prices of gasoline are going insane and your energy bill is increasing by 30%. It's because of Joe Biden, folks. It's because of this administration stifling our energy production. They are kneecapping our domestic energy production. That is why. All you kept hearing in the very beginning when he shut down the Keystone XL pipeline is, well, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have done anything. It wasn't going to be done in 2 years, whatever they kept saying. Well, folks, it would have been here by now. And we'd have been having a massive amount of energy and liquid natural gas delivered here. We would not be dealing with these issues we're facing right now. During the Trump administration, we were finally energy independent, which means we did not need to rely on any other country for our energy needs. And in fact, we were producing so much that we were actually selling our energy to other countries. Well, the moment the Biden administration came in, for whatever reason, this is so bizarre to me. This is the kind of stuff that guarantees my thesis on the government and the establishment overreaching and trying to control everything, is because the Biden administration, when it first came in, it sanctioned the United States energy. Why? And they claim, guess what they claim? Climate change. You see? They are using climate change to justify everything. And so they shut down domestic energy production and instead started buying energy from places like Russia and places like Saudi Arabia and Iran, all of our enemies. Does that make any sense, folks? What is the justification for that? There is none. And so that's why they have to use the climate change excuse, because there's no other reason why you would do it. Okay, because it just doesn't make sense. So you would rather, instead of making energy here where you know how it's being made, you know how efficient it's being made, and you know where it's at, and you don't have to transport it, you don't have to ship it in the train or in the giant freight ships in the ocean, polluting the ocean. You just get it here. Okay, no sending it across the seas. But now they're buying it from other countries, most of which are our adversaries. And then they're having it shipped over here by boat, which is pumping pollution in the ocean. Why? Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense, folks. And so now we're reliant on places like OPEC. So when Joe Biden pisses OPEC off, they're like, yeah, we're not going to be producing as much anymore. So good luck. Try and find your fuel from somewhere else. Try and find your oil from somewhere else. That is why we needed to be energy independent. We tried for 50 years to be energy independent, and we finally got it for the first time under the Trump administration. And what do? They destroy it. They give it away. And then our gas went from $2.10 a gallon to $4 a gallon. It just doesn't make sense, folks. The only reason you would do that is just to allow outside entities to gain control. That is it. That is the only reason why you would do something like that. Honestly, their main goal, if you were to purposely destroy a country, you would not do anything different than what the Biden administration is doing. That is why I am a strong believer that they are purposely trying to destroy this country. They are purposely trying to collapse our currency so that they can implement this stupid government digital currency, something we're going to be talking about in another episode, in an up-and-coming episode. And so that they can implement all these things, one-party rule. And so they want to destroy this country so that they can rebuild from the ashes their own perfect utopia where the globalists control everything, because the globalists think they're so much smarter than everybody. They think they know what's better for everybody. And so the next thing you know, we're going to be under some kind of dictatorial rule by some elite regime that fly around in jets and have these mansions while we're living in crap holes taking public transportation. That's what they want, folks, and that is the direction we're heading if people do not wake up and see this stuff. And so that's the kind of stuff that concerns me. And so there's something else I wanted to get into pretty quick. So Joe Biden has announced he's going to be running for reelection. Get that, folks. As if we weren't in enough pain already. The beatings will continue until morale improves. And so I wanted to play his reelection bid, and we're just going to go through this step by step and call out some BS here. So here we go with his announcement.
Freedom. Personal freedom is fundamental to who we are as Americans.
Fundamental, you mean like vaccine mandates and moratoriums on eviction and mask mandates? So personal freedom when it comes to an abortion, but not personal freedom when it comes to vaccine mandates. Okay, I just want to make it clear if that's what we're talking about. I'm not sure what personal freedoms he's talking about. Selective freedoms doesn't count, okay?
There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred. That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally.
Really? Equally? Under the law? You mean how essentially Democrats get away with everything? So what they mean to say is it's rules for thee, but not for me. Everybody sees the unequal treatment under the law that we're going through right now. Everybody sees the unequal treatment in everything. And so I cannot take this guy seriously when he's talking about treating people equally. And another thing, democracy. How can this guy believe in democracy when his party doesn't even believe in the primary debates, the fundamental democratic process? Explain that one to me. So here we go. We're going to continue on to some more of the lies that he's got.
That everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But you know, around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what health care decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are.
Joe Biden has been in politics since he was 29 years old. How much more longer does this guy need? You need a couple more years, dude? Like, you've been in this for, 50 years? And you need 2 more years? This is the kind of BS I called on this guy when he first started running in 2020. How can this guy sit here and say that he just needs more time? No, dude, you've been doing this for 50 years. We're not playing those games. I'm so tired of this guy's lies, man.
The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom.
Let me ask you something. Do you feel more free now than you did in 2019 or 2018, 17, or 16? No, we have less freedom now. They're coming after our guns. They put masks on everybody. They mandated masks. They mandated vaccines. Now they're trying to control what you can drive. They're trying to control everything. You know, we are not more free, folks. Just another lie from Joe Biden.
More rights or fewer? I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election.
No. Please, Joe, do not run for re-election. We give. I mean, does this guy think we're stupid, man? people that fall for this stuff, are they serious when they see something like this? How does this not look like it's like we're living in some kind of Orwellian 1984 novel with this campaign commercial. I mean, the entire thing was nothing but lies. I mean, you can literally point to everything he said is a lie. Now, if you were successful and you had a successful administration, wouldn't there be just something, some kind of bullet point on your record that you would point to? I mean, this guy has nothing because his administration sucks, because the Democrats suck and their ideas suck. And it's not like you have to sit here and trust if the Republicans are going to do better. You got to see what it was. You got to experience how much better it was during the Trump administration. And so it's a no-brainer when you compare both of these administrations, the 4 years of Donald Trump and the 4 years of Joe Biden. This 4 years can't end fast enough, folks. I really don't even know if we're going to make it for another year and a half, 2 years. And if we're not in World War III by the time this election comes, people are going to be in so much pain from the price of groceries and the increase in inflation and the increase in gas prices and all the rules from like the EPA. And I'm telling you, folks, it is like these people are testing our limits, man. It's like we're living in some kind of George Orwell's 1984 novel. And that was it. That was all of his announcement. That was it. All right, so there's one more audio clip I want to play you that fits well into the subject that we are currently talking about, and it is a NBC poll that says Biden shouldn't run. Take a listen to this.
President Biden prepares to announce his run for re-election. It looks like Americans aren't happy with the idea of what may be inevitable, a 2024 rematch with former President Donald Trump. According to a new NBC News poll, just 26% of Americans believe he should run in 2024, while 70% say he should not. And Trump isn't faring much better. Only 35% say he should run, while 60% say no. NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray joins us now to break all of this down. Mark, according to this latest poll, Biden's job approval rating is also down. What are the reasons behind Democratic primary voters not wanting Biden to run in 2024?
Yeah, Stephanie, our pollsters actually asked Democratic respondents who said that they don't want President Biden to run for re-election and asked them to answer that in a one word or a short phrase. And one word really stands out, Stephanie, and that is Biden being too old. And in a separate question, nearly half of all Americans who ended up saying that they don't want Biden to run in 2024 said his age is a major reason, with another 21% saying that it was a minor reason. So that age definitely stands out there, Stephanie.
And he sucks. How the Democrats and this Biden administration, how the Biden campaign thought they were going to be able to come out with a commercial and not be able to point to one good thing he's done during his administration. Not one. People keep saying the CHIPS Act. That's all I keep seeing online. Well, he did the CHIPS Act to bring more work home. Folks, all you're doing is you're taking taxpayer dollars and you're giving it to billionaires and their corporations to do what they were going to do anyways, to build chips. All you did was take tax dollars and give it to their billionaire corporations. I don't get it.
Your reelection campaign, you've said questions about your age are legitimate, and your response is always, just watch me. But the country is watching, and recent polling shows that 70% of Americans, including a majority of Democrats, believe you shouldn't run again. What do you say to them? What do you say to those Americans who are watching and aren't convinced? You've said you can beat Trump again. Do you think you're the only one?
I may not be the only one, but I know him well, and I know the danger he presents to our democracy, and we've been down this road before. And with regard to age, and polling data, I noticed the polling data I keep hearing about is that I'm between 42 and 46% favorable rating, et cetera. And But everybody running for re-election in this time has been in the same position. There's nothing new about that. We're making it sound like Biden's really underwater. Number one. Number two, when the same polling data asks whether they think what kind of job I've done, it gets overwhelmingly positive results. From 58% thinking everything from the CHIPS Act and all the things we've done. You know, we've created, like I said, we've created 12 million new jobs. We've created 800,000 manufacturing jobs. We have economic growth moving. We're in a situation.
I'm sorry, folks. I have to interrupt here. If you are trying to, and I know Joe Biden is bad on, you know, his cognitive ability, the retrieval method from his brain to retrieve information. But if you're rebutting somebody's claim about why your administration sucks, and even the polls say it sucks, and even Democrats, a majority of Democrats say it sucks, if you can't bring up more than one point as to why it doesn't suck, all he said was the CHIPS Act and all the other stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been president for over 2 years. You can't name more than one thing, dude, that you've done? You can't name more than one good thing that you've done, dude? Like, that is awful, folks. And so I know Joe Biden is essentially a nursing home patient in the Alzheimer's unit, but we really need to have a conversation about what progress looks like. Because if this is progress, okay, if this is successful to the people on the left and Democrats, then we really, really need an intervention with these people about what success and progress look like. All right, here we go. Back to the audio.
Situation where the climate, we've invested more money and more help in dealing with the climate crisis than any nation in the world. And so things are moving. And the reason I'm running again is there's a job to finish. The other thing is that, look, you know, think about
please, God, no, do not finish the job.
I inherited a nation in overwhelming debt at the time, number one, in the hole for the 4 years that he was president. I inherited a nation that had a serious loss of credibility around the world as America first. And, you know, the first meeting I attended the G7, I said, America's back. And one of the world leaders looked and said, for how long? For how long? There's a great concern about the United States being...
Okay, this is another thing that really bugs me. The entire time during the 2020 election, all we heard from the Democrats and their media apparatus and every single anti-Trump person in the country kept saying it's time to put the adults back in office. Folks, if this is what we get with the adults, can we please have the children back? Please. Because this is insane. Back to the article.
Able to lead the free world. And we're doing that again. And those same polls you look at, you take a look at the polls that are saying whether I pull together NATO and the European Union as well as Asian partners, I think we have. But there's more to do. And with regard to age, I can't even say, I guess how old I am, I can't even say the number. It doesn't register with me. And but the only thing I can say is that one of the things that people are going to find out is they're going to see a race and they're going to judge whether or not I have it or don't have it. I respect them taking a hard look at it. I take a hard look at it as well. I took a hard look at it before I decided to run. And I feel good. I feel excited about the prospects. And I think we're on the verge of really turning the corner in a way we haven't in a long time. I know you're tired of hearing me say we're at an inflection point, but we really are. What happens in the next 2, 3, 4 years is going to determine what the next 3, 4 decades look like.
That's what scares me.
I have never been more optimistic in my life about the possibilities of the United States.
I'm glad you're optimistic.
To be clear, though, you just said, I know him well. Did Donald Trump's decision to run affect yours? Would you be running if he wasn't?
Yeah, I think I still would be running if he wasn't. I do know him well. He's not hard to know, as you know. You know him well, too. The question is whether or not... Look, there's more to finish the job. We have an opportunity to put ourselves in a position where we are economically and politically secure for a long time. Look, we continue to have, and now we don't like to hear me saying it, there's still a contest between autocracies and democracies. and we're the leading democracy in the world.
I'm so
and it's
sick of this
something I know
word,
a fair
folks.
amount about, something I care about, and something that I have found a willingness of an awful lot of our allies and friends to follow. So I think that, we have to finish the job, nail it down.
Please, God, I do not want these people finishing the job. I think they need fired, ladies and gentlemen. They need fired. If I was a business owner and one of my employees sucked this bad and screwed this many things up, I would fire them. Please do not allow these people to finish the job. They suck. They suck. They cannot do this. All right? And so this guy's speech, this first formal press briefing he's done in months. And by the way, there was an article that came out today that he actually had a little cheat sheet. He had cards with the pictures of the reporters that said one question, her name, and then actually had the reporter's question on the card. So this is the level we have reached, folks. This is the leader we're going to have for another 6 years? No, we cannot do this. This insanity must stop. Okay? And I have a feeling that Democrats know that Joe Biden is screwed. Okay? That is why they were freaking out. However, every time I think that, Democrats elect people like John Fetterman. That is what's scary to me. It is clear and obvious we are dealing with people that do not care. They are irrational. They are unreasonable. They obviously do not care who is in the White House. This is what freaks me out. We are dealing with obviously psychologically and emotionally damaged people if they can vote for somebody like John Fetterman. They literally voted for somebody who was brain dead, couldn't talk, couldn't hear, couldn't read, and couldn't write over a doctor. This is scary. We are dealing with this much stupidity. And so I don't want people getting complacent and thinking Joe Biden can't win this election and it's impossible. It is not impossible, folks. It is not. And people need to treat this election as if it's the last election they're ever going to get and that we're behind the 50-yard line. We are in the third down on the 50-yard line with 12 seconds left on the board in the fourth quarter. Okay, we need to win this, and I'm telling you, if people get confident that Joe Biden is this moronic, just know that it's part of their plan. They want somebody like Joe Biden. They don't want somebody that's easy to hate like Donald Trump. They don't want a character. They want some cold, empty suit that they can control and manipulate like Joe Biden. They don't want anybody with a character. Look at John Fetterman. They voted for a brain-dead guy that couldn't talk over a doctor. So it is clear and obvious we are not dealing with rational people here, folks. And so I don't want Republicans and conservatives to get complacent. Do not think Joe Biden cannot win this election. This is exactly their plan. This is their strategy. Democrats don't do much on accident. Okay? Everything they do is strategic. It is strategic and is to gain power. One thing and one thing only. And so people need to realize that Joe Biden can actually win. Joe Biden, like I said, is exactly the kind of person they want. They want someone brain dead, an empty suit that they could just push around and trail him along with ice cream cones. Okay, give him a stack of cards to read and pick and give him the pictures of the reporter's name and the picture of her and the question she's going to ask, and like a trained monkey, dude. He's like a trained old person. He's like a nursing home patient with cognitive disabilities that they can train and manipulate and guide around wherever they need to go. It is truly bizarre. And we are watching this entire thing collapse. And it's not collapsing on accident, folks. It is collapsing on purpose. That's what people need to get. They are doing all this damage on purpose. Okay, unfortunately, half the population we have, 80 million people, cannot see it. Or they see it and they want the collapse. And that might be a lot of them too. That's all your socialists, your radical leftists, your commies, the authoritarians, totalitarians. They want the collapse of the country so that they can rebuild from the ashes. You have another set of Democrats, the more liberal Democrats, that just don't pay attention. They are not paying attention. And so when they go to the ballot box, what they're going to do is, just like I told you, the DNC has announced they are not going to be having primary debates. So much for Joe Biden saying he believes in democracy. They are going to do exactly what they did with John Fetterman. They are going to hide him. They're going to do these videos like his announcement video where they put the emotional music in the background. They probably got to do like 50 or 60 takes to get one sentence out. And they're going to release these videos strategically. Probably going to have like artificial intelligence making these videos. They're going to release them strategically, all from his basement, just like they did in 2020. They are going to do this just like Fetterman. They're going to hide him and keep him away from the debates as long as possible, and then they're going to use the election laws and all the election stuffing boxes and ballot harvesting and all that stuff to get ballots before Election Day. They're going to use the 3 or 4 months they have of election time, and they're going to wait to the last minute to get to do any kind of debate. They're going to hide Joe Biden until election time. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make these videos that they just put out that make Joe Biden look like a coherent person, and they're going to keep him away from the public so nobody sees him. They're going to keep him away from primary debates. They're going to keep him away from press briefings, just like they've done. They've been doing this, folks. Joe Biden has been gone for more than 50% of his time in the White House. He's been in Rehoboth Beach. He's been in Delaware. And nobody even knows. Nobody even realizes. And that is what they want, folks. They don't want people noticing. They want a character like Joe Biden, stay under the radar, not a big character. They don't want any kind of bombastic character that they could be easy to hate. They just want someone just like Joe Biden, a dull, boring, empty, stupid old man that they can manipulate and get what they want. Joe Biden is being used like a tool. That is it. He is being used like a Trojan horse. And that's what I want people to realize. And so Joe Biden... And so one last thing, Jimmy Kimmel had come out on a show, and it seems as if something is starting to happen in the Democrats. And this is why I think they're going to be hiding Joe Biden from here on out. Because here, Jimmy Kimmel did a show the other night that was pretty ruthless. Here, check this out.
Official, he is running for president again. He said he's running to battle for the soul of America, which is, I don't know, that's a lot to battle for. Most people his age are barely winning the battle against constipation. But make no mistake, Grandpa Joe is back on the road to the White House, and he's doing 35 in the center lane with his blinker on.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America. What is the soul of America? Freedom, wisdom, kindness, empathy, style. I'm talking about panache, man. Whispering.
I wrote the bill.
Just because it sounds cool.
$1.9 trillion.
And vital, although if he wins, he'll be 82 when his second term starts. His face could be on money while he is still in office. What an election. Trump and Biden are 76 and 80 years old. You know who else lets the oldest males run their society? Gorillas.
See, folks, this is exactly what they want. They don't want Joe Biden to be easy to hate. And so as long as they could trot him out there, they'll, make fun of him, throw some peanuts at him once in a while, and then they'll get him across the finish line. Because Joe Biden, if there's nothing there to hate, you're going to vote for him over the guy you really, really do hate. So their strategy is going to be, just like it was in 2020 and 2022, Donald Trump is the boogeyman, the threat to democracy, as the Democrats are actively destroying democracy. But Donald Trump is the boogeyman. He is the person you should fear the most. He is the fascist, the Nazi, the Hitler, all the scary words that they've been using the last 6-7 years. And Joe Biden is just this sweet old dumb man who's just really old, but we can use him to get the things that we need done. And, he's just this sweet, innocent baby. That's what they're going to do, folks. It's going to be a lot easier for these people to pull that lever for Joe Biden, just as long as it's normal, and not vote for Donald Trump, while at the same time persecuting Donald Trump to make him look like this evil, evil man that just wants fascism in the country. Even though for 4 years, this is why they need to memory hole the Donald Trump administration. All 4 years, you will not hear anybody talk about the success of Donald Trump. Nothing. No Democrat, no leftist will say anything Donald Trump did was good. Even though this man had a completely successful 4-year administration. They want people to forget the entire thing. And I actually was reading an article how colleges are writing books and giving the books to students that do the same thing. They are erasing the Trump administration from history. It is so weird, folks. I'm probably going to do an episode about it soon. I have so much stuff to talk about. This is why an hour episode just almost isn't long enough. I could probably sit on here for 3 or 4 hours and still not get all the information out. And so you have that they are going to be hiding Joe Biden. It's going to be another repeat of 2020. But and that is why they had to get rid of Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson had the ability to speak to people in the middle of the road. Tucker Carlson had that amazing ability to get people to just think. When in 2020, they didn't know who Joe Biden was. Independents just thought a vote for Joe Biden was a vote for normalcy. They even said it. The Democrats use these emotional platitudes, these talking points. That's why they keep these words repeating over and over and over again in people's heads, like democracy, democracy, democracy. You are going to hear the word democracy more times in the next year and a half than you have in your entire life, because that is going to be the word they use to get votes. Threats to democracy. Biden fights for democracy. Donald Trump hates democracy. Joe Biden protects democracy. That is what they're going to do. For some reason, maybe democracy. I'm telling you, I think they use artificial intelligence with this stuff, folks. I think they use AI to find out what words are more strategic. What is the most effective word? And I think democracy is one of those words. If you noticed how many times, pay attention now, how many times they use the word democracy now. It is crazy. It is almost in every other sentence when you listen to CNN and MSNBC. Even in tweets or on social media. They use democracy like every other sentence. They don't even know what democracy is, folks. But it's a strategic word that I guarantee they got from AI. They typed in, what is an effective word for the Democrats to use in the 2024 election? Democracy. I'm telling you, all this stuff is strategized. Everything you see from here on out is part of a strategy. And Republicans need to have an equal strategy. And I'm going to go out and just say this right here, right now, and get it out of the way. I think Donald Trump should choose Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as his running mate. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds insane, but I'm going to explain to you why in my next episode. My wife told me I was absolutely insane. But I'm not, folks. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why he should pick Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as his running mate when I release my next episode. And it's pretty interesting. I think you're going to want to hear this. Just like Democrats are strategizing, Republicans need to strategize as well. And so my strategy is to you, my advice is to Republicans and conservatives, is do not underestimate your opponent and do not be hubris. Hubrism will be our biggest downfall. We need to realize that Democrats will elect a toaster oven as long as it means getting rid of Donald Trump. I don't know why Donald Trump scares these people so bad. I mean, what did he do? I seriously want to ask Democrats, and I do all the time, what did he do that was so bad? What did he do that was so threatening? Give people cheap gas? Secure our borders? Make peace around the world? Secure the Middle East? All the successes of the Trump administration, they kept saying Donald Trump was going to cause World War III. Turns out it's Joe Biden that has us on the brink of World War III. Then they say Donald Trump is a fascist. When we've never been closer to fascism in my entire life with the Joe Biden administration, between vaccine mandates and eviction moratoriums and the way that they're weaponizing the government institutions to censor and silence Americans. Folks, this is crazy, how close we are to actual, real, legitimate fascism, coming after your Second Amendment rights. I mean, there's so many examples I can tell you that remind me of some kind of fascistic regime. I mean, it is a no-brainer. And so everything, this is a good thing to remember too. Everything they told you Donald Trump was, Joe Biden is. And they project just like that. So everything they accuse their opponents of doing, they themselves have done, are doing, or plan on doing in the future. That is how they operate. So if they are accusing Donald Trump of being a fascist, it is actually the Biden administration that are the fascists, or it's actually the Democratic Party that plan on being fascistic. And because they know that the things they're going to implement, people are going to start thinking of fascism. And so they want to just nip it in the butt and project that and deflect onto their opponents. And that's another thing, arresting your political opponents. Look how they're targeting the other side, folks. Between Donald Trump and in his indictment, using some George Soros-funded DA in New York, to now they're investigating Clarence Thomas, which I actually have an article about that I was reading about, and how a judge smacked that whole thing down. And so they're not going to be getting anywhere with Clarence Thomas, based off of what this judge was saying. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next episode. So that is what I want people to reflect on today's episode. I want people to realize all the way to Tucker Carlson's video about how the orthodoxy knows it's abysmal right now. The orthodoxy is failing, and it knows it's failing the people right now. And that's why it is so scared. And it is acting out of fear. And it is silencing and censoring people out of fear. It is afraid. It knows that what we're witnessing right now is insanity. And it knows that the people are starting to catch on. All their lies and misrepresentations and misinformation and disinformation are starting to come back at them. Everything. That's why it's important that Republicans in the House Oversight Committee stay on track. Do not let Democrats guilt them out of leaving those committees and pulling back. We are just getting started with those committees, folks. There is so much that is coming out of those committees. It is incredible. And the leftist media, the Democrat media, is not talking about it at all. At all. Think about it. How much did you know about the weaponization of our government? How much have you heard about the Twitter files? Has any leftist media outlets been talking about it? No. And that is a huge deal, folks. The United States government colluding with big tech companies and social media platforms to silence a story that damages a political party and a political campaign. Look at the 51 intel agents comes to find out that the entire thing was a lie to get Joe Biden across the finish line. Listen, folks, it is clear and obvious what we are up against, and I just want people to realize, just like Tucker Carlson said in his video, the orthodoxy knows it doesn't look good. The orthodoxy knows this is a failure, and they are acting out of fear. They are lashing out. And that's why you're going to start seeing a massive increase in censorship in the next coming weeks and months. I assure you, they're not done with the people at Fox. They're going to be firing more Fox people because the kids, I have a feeling, are influencing Rupert Murdoch and who he fires and gets rid of, because the kids are a bunch of leftists now talking about white nationalism and climate denialism and all that stuff. And so I just want people to realize that Joe Biden can come out and lie as much as he wants. They know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know that we know they're lying, and they do it anyways. And so people need to remember that. And so don't think that Joe Biden can't be elected when you see that they elected somebody like John Fetterman. And also the Hunter Biden saga continues as his lawyers talk to the district attorney's office in Delaware. That's going to be some interesting stuff. And obviously some more corruption has been found with the suspicious activity reports that Comer's been talking about. So they found more reports. So there's even more SARS reports than originally reported. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that. There was one more thing I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into the climate change and the massive damage climate change, renewable energy is doing to our country and our lands. But I'm not going to be able to get into it today. This has went on for too long. I think we may need to turn this into like a 2-hour episode, folks. I don't know. That may be a little bit too much for me as far as post-production. But I don't know. There's just so much that needs to be talked about, and I just feel like I don't have enough time. Next episode, I'm going to be getting into how this whole climate change is a gimmick and how it's causing a whole lot of damage to our country. And the Washington Post comes out with an article that says there's just not enough land for renewable energy. And so that is quite interesting. It seems as if reality is starting to hit the Washington Post in the head over there. Who knows? But I did want to talk about that and a couple other things. I had this inherent contempt I wanted to talk to you about. Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan's going to be going through. He tried getting a subpoena, then they shot. I don't know. There was something that happened with Jim Jordan, people not responding to subpoenas over there in the House Oversight Committee. And so I wanted to read you this inherent contempt law that I found from 2007. From a guy, Michael Stern was talking about it in 2007. I also wanted to talk about schools and how the indoctrinations in the schools are going. And as far as these states that are passing legislation that bans certain books in school libraries, that's a big step. And so we got a battle here, folks. We're going to win some and we're going to lose some. But I need everyone to realize that we are indeed in a culture war right now. It is a multi-front war, and there's going to be a lot of battles. And we just need, as long as you guys realize that we are indeed in a culture war, I think you'll have the right attitude about this election. And just never, ever underestimate the Democrat Party, because everything they do is by strategy. Everything they do is on purpose and not by accident. So that's all I have for today, folks. And if you have any questions, you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at StephenTauriello@gmail.com. That's Stephen, Tauriello, show@gmail.com. That's so weird when I say that. That's StephenTauriello@gmail.com. If you guys have any questions or you want to ask me anything, you want to tell me how your day went, whatever it is, if you have something really cool to say, I'll read it on the show. That's all I have for today. I just want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.